There used to be this game show, Let's Make a Deal, which is long enough now that I remember. I'm not sure if other people do, but there was always this question you'd have some money, and you'd have these curtains, and the question was, well, do you take the money in front of you, or do you take what's behind the curtain? And sometimes there's a car behind the curtain, and sometimes there's a year's supply of Eskimo pies, and you don't quite know. In some sense, Western North America is what's behind the curtain. It may turn out to be a kind of bonanza, or it may turn out to be the great American desert. And these European geographers and explorers and officials don't really know. What initially got me interested is I wondered, well, if you were a statesman, a diplomat in one of these European empires, and you're competing in some sense with the statesmen and diplomats from the other European empires for this continent, how do you really conduct that competition when you don't know what you're competing for? Geographers at this time, and European geographers, they didn't really know where North American land ended and Pacific water began. And they had an idea that there was a sort of inland sea in what is now Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, a big sort of extension of the Pacific inland, sort of like the Mediterranean going into Eurasia. And they also had the idea that it'd be relatively easy to get to this Western Sea and also to the Pacific. There'd be maybe a plateau in the center of the continent. You'd take your canoe up a river like the Missouri, you'd cross this little plateau, and then you'd go down this other conveniently navigable river on the other side. Only after about 1750 is there beginning to be a suspicion that maybe there's something a little more formidable. It's basically from the end of the War, the Spanish Succession, the big treaty of which is in 1713, to the end of the 7 Years' War in 1763, and there's a little bleed over before and after. But I'm really looking at this period of imperial rivalry in North America, where France is a big player, a big presence in the North American continent. Spain remains a presence. Britain is growing in ambition and power, both in North America and really in the hemisphere in general. And you haven't had the sort of imperial sorting process that goes on in the 7 Years' War. The French figure is in some ways to me most intriguing in the game show, in that the French approach to all this changes over the course of the century. If you talk about Western North America or Louisiana, whichever designation you want to use in 1720, the French official is going to take the curtain, because they're saying, look, there's all kinds of possibilities here. There's silver mines, maybe there's Chinese cities on the Pacific coast, maybe there's easy trade connections with Spain. Up to about 1750, the way French officials assess the American West is, we're not sure what's out there, but it's probably going to be good, and that's what we should bank on. We should take the curtain. Starting around 1750, give or take, you start to see a change. They start quite specifically to say, let's stop talking about these things we haven't seen. Let's not calculate the unknown into our assessments of Western North America. And as this happens, North America seems less clearly valuable. Spain, I think, in one sense seems like, as I say, in one sense seems like almost a victor in acquiring all these territories west of the Mississippi. But Spain is going to have great difficulty, as we know, being able to hold on to those territories. And then Britain, in a sense, Britain seems to have got it all, and yet it loses an awful lot of what it had. I mean, this is the great irony, is Britain sort of takes all these actions at the end of the 7 Years' War. Essentially, they're kind of conservative actions. I mean, part of the reason Britain is taking Canada from France, is taking the territory between the Mississippi and the Appalachians, is British officials want to protect those British colonies on the Atlantic seaboard. They want to not have a chance to get into another war with France and North America by getting France out of Canada. Britain also takes Florida from Spain at the end of that conflict, again, hoping to have kind of large territorial buffers around the Atlantic colonies, hoping to provide areas that aren't west of the Appalachians they can expand into. And this does not go as planned. And in a sense, this British effort to protect and preserve its colonies on the Atlantic seaboard contributes to the loss of those colonies 20 years later. So Britain seems like it gets the car, but it doesn't. It gets something quite different. And the United States really gets the car. I mean, that's the irony of it all. I mean, that's essentially conditions are created. They're going to favor future American expansion.